Okay, this is take 10. Is that okay? Happiness, take 10. Uh, so, in the last story, I could feel myself angering at the opinion put forth by someone, and then this guy, another graduate student, said, "No, I disagree with that. My position is such and such because," and he gave the reasons. And he did this in such a calm voice. Made it clear he disagreed, didn't give in, but at the same time, he wasn't angry, didn't show any anger. And that so impressed me that I imitated that subsequently. I learned to be assertive without being crazy about it. That was an experience, sitting there watching this guy behave that way and liking the way he did that and wanting to be like that. When I was teaching in a college counselor training program, I was charged with. I had a class in individual counseling and a class in group counseling, where in one case the students were supposed to learn how to give individual counseling. It was a class of students. And the other one, it was a group. And you can't teach this stuff with a textbook. It was some stupid goddamn textbook, 600-700 pages by some pseudo genius, and that was normally used. And so what I told them at the beginning, this is not psychotherapy. This is a class in how to do group psychotherapy. It's a laboratory in human behavior is what it is. So since you're all human beings, you all are part of a laboratory, and each one of you are also taking the laboratory. So you're part of the lab, and you're also a student taking the lab. And what I want you to do is just practice coming to understand what other people are like, what human beings are like, and you can approach this as you wish. Most of them had seen counseling done before, and knew the kinds of things that would come up. And so they did this, and I gave some guidance. The thing that was most important about this is that what they learned was basically not from me. It was basically the interaction with these other people. They were free to, each week, somebody else would be in charge of conducting a group. But what they did was entirely up to them. If they came to class, they got an A. And just an example, a lot of these people are people who have had a lot of problems. Many have had drug problems or marital problems or things in relationships. And there was a woman who had something coming up, and she didn't know how to handle it. And one of the other women in the class made a suggestion. She was a quiet woman and didn't really believe she knew much about anything. Didn't have a very high regard for herself. A nice person. And everybody who was interested in what the person's problem was paid close attention to what this woman said. Now, what I remembered from 40 years before was that the therapist tried to pump people up by praising them and stuff. But you know, if you praise people in a way that's not real, I mean, you praise them for things that they really don't do, or you're insincere, but you're trying to give them confidence. They're going to see this, and they'll just disregard what you're saying. The fact that these people listened, that they thought her advice on this thing or her example that she gave was worth listening to, really struck her. And she mentioned later, you know, I'm surprised that y'all, you know, thought this was of value, and I'm glad. So what she learned was something about herself and the value of her contribution there by the response of the other people. They didn't praise her and say, "Oh, what great advice. Oh, you're smart." What they did was they asked, "Okay, now what would I do after this?" And it was something, you know, where she you know, she did know something about whatever she was talking about from personal experience. And there were these kinds of interactions with people where they learned how other people would respond to them in a context where they had some incentive to be honest. I mean, it wasn't going to affect their grade, and if anybody tried to impress everybody else, it would be clear that they were the only ones doing that. It would make them not part of the group. Had one Marine in there who really was not prone to fear and had a high regard for his toughness. I mean, he was out of the Marines, but had served 25 years, hated the Marines, hated the authoritarianism. And I said at the beginning, okay, as long as we got a group here and you got all these people helping out, if there's something, some change you would like to make in your life over this semester, this is not therapy, but if you would like to use the people who are here for something, then yeah, you can. I mean, just tell us what it is, or you don't have to. Nobody was required to say anything about themselves. They were just required to be honest if they did say something. And so he wanted to stop smoking, and he was going to commit to stopping smoking. And you know, this is a guy who gave the impression that he thought he could do anything. And Mr. Iron Will. And I said, okay, so pick a date. And so he picked a date. That was the date you stopped. Didn't have to be tomorrow, this week, but pick a date. And then if you're committed to it, then, and then by the end of the semester, it turns out he couldn't stop smoking. Just, you know, he was not able in that one try to do it. And he said, you know, I never realized how hard it was. Well, they saw an example of somebody, you know, who seemed to have a high regard for himself, who admitted, you know, he couldn't do it, and you know, he would have to make a more sustained try. And so they learned something, both about the way people, the difference between appearance and reality, and you know, something about this guy as an individual. These are therapeutic things. They come from life, and they come in their form of learning. Okay, there'll be one more. What was this one?
10.
This was 10? Okay.